Going on, everybody? Welcome into another edition of the Sun Belt Syndicate, the 3B edition, presented to you by Don't Sleep Energy and Phenom Elite. Check them out in the links below and our little discount codes that you can apply as well. With you from the first kick to the last pitch. And Marv, there were probably no pitches in the local area today with the storms, quote unquote, that we had, right?
Our practice got canceled today.
Yeah. Marv and I were just talking before jumping on here live and saying that and it's not really just us, right? A lot of the East Coast was under weather advisories for the day. And some places like us were at like a 4 out of a 5. However, at least locally here in North Carolina, we didn't see much of any. Did you see any reports from anywhere, Marv? I mean, I wasn't with the TV on, but I don't know.
Yeah, I did. I mean, it definitely rained. There was plenty of that. It's a little windy now, but yeah, they freaked everybody out yesterday. Like high probability of, 70-mile-per-hour winds, tornadoes, hail, and all that stuff. And it was just like a Eastern North Carolina thunderstorm.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't even think we saw thunder or lightning here at all. I mean, we even had like light rain. It was heavy for maybe like 10 to 15 minutes at the most today. I did see something that I didn't even have time to change the graphics for later on. But App State and High Point have already canceled tomorrow's game, I guess because of how wet they deemed everything was going to be. I'm not really sure, but
essentially, yeah. Are they going to make it back up?
Interestingly enough. Yeah, I don't know. I just saw that it says usually if it's going to be moved, it'll say postponed. This said canceled, so who knows? But we'll see. I've seen stuff postponed, never be made up, and I've seen stuff labeled canceled, then become a game again. So
you never know.
You don't. It's kind of a weird thing. I feel like sometimes those teams will make it happen if both teams need an extra game or could help RPI or something. So we'll see. But looks like tentatively one game already affected by the quote unquote weather that we had. Tell the people about your son being like biggest badass the other weekend when it came to taking a baseball to the face.
Yeah, he lost one in the sun, popped him in his nose, broke his nose, fractures orbital bone on Monday of last week. And then he played in a tournament this weekend and hit 554.
Nice.
Yeah.
That part I didn't know.
Yeah, no, he both of my kids had tournaments this weekend. I had 9 baseball games in 2 days over the weekend. Obviously, we had to split duties, but yeah, he played this weekend. His team went to the championship. They fell short by 1 run, but yeah, he went 6 for 11 this weekend.
Very nice. That's awesome. Yeah. And was he wearing the mask or did he do the cage?
He played the outfield the entire weekend. He refused to wear the mask, so we didn't let him pitch. We didn't let him play infield. Definitely some I noticed that he was stepping out when he was hitting, but I probably would be a little gun shy with the ball coming at me, but it didn't affect the way he hit the ball. So, yeah, just put up with it. And every time a pitch came, you held your breath. He actually got hit like right here in the shoulder in his second game. And it was one of those like everyone held their breath, and then he gets up and throws his bat to the dugout and runs down to first base. I'm like, okay, didn't hit him in the face. Good job.
Yeah, all the Sunbelt coaches right now are going, Dickens, keep an eye on this kid.
If it was hockey, he might get a check mark for it.
Well, the toughness factor, he's got that part. Someone's asking us if we speak Spanish. We do not, unfortunately. I want to. I'd like to learn how to speak Spanish. Not there yet. Benjamin, what's up? And Wolves up as always. Chris Wrightstill jumping in. Hey, guys, proud of my Warhawks. Look, hey, I was wrong. I picked terribly this week in the pick'ems. We'll get to that, but I am supporting the guys who did a really phenomenal job of taking down Texas State in a sweep. We'll get to that there. And he's asking if people will look at them differently after sweep. I am. I know I am.
They're probably going to move to the left side of the rankings this week. That was impressive. Texas State we had them ranked pretty high, and
we did.
Yeah, they went down there and not only did they sweep them, but like 2 of the 3 games they just they beat them pretty good.
Yeah, absolutely. And something else we'll get to is A-State putting the Sun Belt on notice, as Ben James said. They definitely did do that. We're calling this episode here Swept and Ranked after the first weekend of Sun Belt conference play, I should say. But before we get into our show hardcore, we're dividing it up into segments. So we've got a little fun way to break some of these things up. We're calling the first segment Rounding the Bases. To divide it up. I hope that played for you, Marv, because it did not play on my side.
No, it played.
Okay, good. All right. So first up, we had our weekend series picks. And as we know, once we get into conference play, we're going back to picking every single series in the Sun Belt. We're going to destroy our records because this is the hardest. Yeah, this is the hardest pick 'em that exist out there. I have this further broken down to Marv, but quick thoughts. You took the week by a whole game over CFB home. He was our guest picker of the week. We'll see if he remains on or if he'd like to just say, I had fun, but I'm going to bow out and see if somebody else wants to pick. But Marv, you are the champion from this past week.
Well, I mean, it's like the weatherman. You can, get half the stuff wrong and still be employed. So we'll take it. But, close in a couple series and then some that I just didn't see, it happening. But man, some really good baseball and poor Seth. That's what happens when you don't jump on the podcast. You miss every single pick.
Yeah. Yep. That is right. Ben is asking if there'll be a guest picker. There will be a guest picker every week, but we'll see how we're going to work the rules. This was obviously our first time really starting this up, but we want to do it every single week for conference play only. We like to get our bearings and have it kind of focused on us outside of conference. But once we get into conference play, we're picking all 7 games every week. Let's have some fun with it. We will see. Again, if we're going to rotate, we kind of threw it out there that if you win, you get to stay on for the next week. And at the first part, we said, as long as you beat one of us. So we might have to bend the rules depending on how bad all of us are this year. But yeah, there's a lot of red on this graph. If you haven't seen it, you're listening to the audio version of this. It can be found on any social media platform on our channels. It looks like Seth went over. And again, for people that are tuning in for the first time or not checking this out previously, if you don't hit the series exactly correct, it's a red X. All right. You can only get a green check mark and get the points or the win, I guess I should say. There's not points here, but you can only get the win if you nail it 100% accurate. And again, Marv did that 3 times this weekend. So, dude, that was awesome. I know it hurt your heart to pick Coastal over App in a sweep, huh?
It did. I just after Coastal had beat East Carolina at East Carolina 2 out of 3, I just figured that I didn't think App was playing great ball coming in. So yeah, it did. That was a pick with your head, not your heart.
Yeah, I thought about it, but I was like, man, App had won some actually they won the series 2 years ago when Coastal had come up.
They did, and they were in every single baseball game. They just couldn't get across the hump in that. And JMU, thought they would win the series. Didn't. I thought Southern would take one. Same thing, Marshall and Georgia State. And then the 2 surprises of the week, right? Like ULM sweeping Texas State, and then or maybe not surprises to some, but for my picks, and then Arkansas State taking care of business, winning the series down there at Southern Miss. Just good for them, bad for us.
Yeah, absolutely. And at CFB home, I have to give him credit. I mean, he picked 2 series correct, and two of which you also got right. So it's kind of interesting there. I went with some ones that I thought. I mean, the Georgia Southern sweep against James Madison looks really dumb now, but hey, I saw Georgia Southern beat a pretty darn good Clemson baseball team. Yeah. We had JMU at the bottom of our power rankings, as we're going to show you next. And I thought this is kind of the turning of the tide. I did think, a sweep was a little bit out there, but I thought this is something that could happen that nobody else picks. So that was my reasoning. Was different than a 2-1 pick, but it doesn't matter because JMU swept the other direction, so it looks really bad now. But there was some reasoning behind it, right? Like I'm not a total idiot, at least sometimes. Chad jumping in saying, "What's up, my guys? What's up, Chad?" I know he had some stuff to say about how Southern struggles against some lefties, and Arkansas State made sure to put those guys up on the mound quite a bit. And it was, I guess, ultimately what did Southern miss in this series from the sounds of it, from the looks of it. So interesting to see that could be a kryptonite. We'll see if other people seem to take advantage of that or not. But also, before we jump over to the power rankings, A-State won't have a midweek game this week due to weather at Missouri State. Also canceled tomorrow. So not only App State High Point not taking place, A-State, Missouri State now also not taking place. So it'll be a moving target here as we see the schedule that will later pop up in the show for Tuesday. So he's saying they'll have a week off before they get going back in conference play. And then we'll jump over to our power rankings here. Again, these were before this last weekend's game. So they took into account the midweek games before Friday, but these came out. What did we put these out? Friday afternoon, I think, before games started.
Yeah, Friday morning. Something. Yeah, Friday morning, I think. Right around lunchtime.
Yeah. So that is what you're seeing here on screen. Southern Miss at the top, Cajuns 2, Coastal 3, Texas State 4, A-State 5, South Alabama 6. App State was over on that left side at 7. At 8, 9, and 10, Georgia State, ULM, Marshall. We had Troy at 11, ODU 12. Georgia Southern had jumped JMU. I expect that to change this week, though, Marv, at least down at the bottom, right?
It will. And once again, reminder, if you're watching the show, this is not where we think they will end. This is just where they currently stand.
Exactly. It'll be interesting. This is an interesting thing. Ben has said A-State will be moving up. Absolutely will be moving up. It's going to be interesting because, like you just said, this is not a prediction. This is not the standings. I'm going to be interested to see, again, there's 3 of us in this poll. Does anyone put A-State above Southern Miss? Because, again, this is power rankings. This takes into account everything that's happened already this season and then what's just happened and transpired. It doesn't take into account what we think will happen. So A-State took the series from Southern Miss. But are we thinking at the same time that, in a power rankings poll, A-State would be above Southern Miss? I think that's an argument that could be made. It'll be interesting to see if that actually transpires. I think no doubt about it, they'll jump Texas State.
Yeah.
I guess we'll have to give cadence to what we think came out of Coastal and App State, right? Is Coastal scraping by a slightly above average or average App State baseball team? Or is App State a really good baseball team and Coastal is also good and overcame, some tough games? It's interesting how we could do this, right?
Yeah, I'm not going to give too much away, but Arkansas State will be going up in my power rankings, but they will not jump Southern Miss.
Yeah, I think it'll be a hard jump, right? I mean, A-State not ranked to this point, at least in the poll that we use, which is the D1 poll that NCAA uses on their official website. That's why we've been using that one. There are many other polls. I believe the Baseball America poll is the one A-State is currently ranked in. It is interesting to see how close they could be to being ranked in the D1 poll. I wish they would say others receiving votes category. The only thing that they do include in that, right, Marv, is the ones that fell out, which is like, okay, that's obvious. But I want to see how close we have our 4th team, right? Because we now have 3 teams in the rankings as Louisiana gets ranked this week after beating South Alabama in their series. And any other notes on the power rankings before we move on to a little snapshot from the weekend?
No, I mean, there's going to be some movement, right? App got swept. Obviously, JMU's got to go above Georgia Southern. Marshall and ULM would sweep. So there will be some movement, but in the conference is kind of top to middle heavy at the moment. The bottom's the bottom, right? But 1 through 8 all have a legit chance to continue to move up. I mean, heck, anybody could turn it around, right? JMU you could propel off of this sweep and start skyrocketing up the board. But the left side of that board, whatever it is, every single week are going to be very good baseball teams.
Yeah, absolutely. And Neil bringing up a good point. Again, we'll do this before we move on. App has lost to 2 ranked teams and has lost a bunch of one run games. There's too many starting words that were similar there. Not sure how much that plays into the rankings. It definitely plays into the rankings. And I think that's why we'd seen App being respected and on that top 7, as we call it, just because of how this poll looks on the graphic itself. But it'll be interesting. I don't see them staying over there again with what ULM has done, what Marshall has done. They probably fall back to that other side, but we'll see how far down, because they could just drop one spot ultimately. We'll have to see what happens there. Okay, the snapshot from this weekend as just a quick glance: Marshall, ULM, Coastal Carolina, and James Madison all sweep their first conference series, and the teams that got swept: App State, Texas State, which was the biggest shocker of the weekend to me, Georgia Southern, and Georgia State. So the 2 Georgia teams losing in sweeping fashion. I guess on a quick question for you here, Marv, is this like the sweeps are good and positive from an outside perspective of the conference overall, or would you like to see like a more competitive balance where almost every series ends 2-1 or something like that?
I mean, for RPI, you probably want 2-1 because it shows, not as much parity in the league. I don't know, kind of torn between that one. I do have a note written down though. Marshall, their first opening conference sweep since joining the conference, and also their first opening weekend conference sweep since 1995.
That's crazy. Can you remember the one about South Alabama? It was their first sweep since like 22 earlier this year or something like that.
It had been a while, but so first conference sweep. Obviously, they moved conferences since then, but since 1995. That's 30 years.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah,
pretty insane. But you know what?
We always talk about it, right? Sweeps are hard. Like to win all 3 games, that is super hard. Look at Troy last year, how many times they had a chance to sweep, it didn't secure it on Sunday. So to have more than 50% of the conference series swept in the first week is pretty incredible.
Yeah, it is. It was interesting to see that going in, there was 4 that could take place after Saturday, and they all 4 took place on Sunday. So every team that could take care of business did get it done. A little interesting to see that there wasn't any kind of different measure that came out of it, but that is kind of your snapshot of the weekend at a glance. And then we'll quickly take a look back at last week, how we got to all this before we preview the upcoming week, but we'll hit that rewind the week real quick. So starting off last week on Tuesday, we had a lot of conference games, and we had 3 ranked teams that we went up against. Those are the most notable games from last week that got us a good thing. The only other one I'll note is the UTRGV versus Louisiana game, because that one is a big deal now, right, Marv? Louisiana probably does not get ranked had they lost that game after a 2-1 series with South Alabama this weekend.
No, I definitely agree. And you touched on it earlier, though. The other one that kind of sticks out is the Georgia Southern beating Clemson, right? Like, and 6-1, and you're like, man, I think they had come off a series win or a sweep the week before. It's like, okay, did they steady the ship, or are they on the right path? And then they get swept again this week. But it's good to see 3 ranked wins on the midweek for the conference, right? Coastal, Georgia Southern, and Southern Miss.
Yeah, absolutely. And Texas State had a shot at Texas. Unfortunately, 15-4 final. But look, Texas is number 2 in the nation for a reason.
Texas,
so
Texas is number one in my book. That is the most complete team, top to bottom, best pitching staff. They if I were to put money on it today, they are the national champions.
Interesting. I don't dislike it, I guess is what I should say. We'll save the thought process for another time, because I was having the debate once again with the D1 mid-major account that they were like, hey, look at all these Sunbelt teams. There's 3 of them ranked in the top 25. Here they are in our rankings. I was like, okay, so if there's 3 of us in the top 25 and a 4th probably floating just outside, why are you still referring to us as a mid-major program or mid-major conference? Because it just doesn't make sense to me. What other
outside the SEC and the ACC, who has more teams ranked? Nobody.
Right. Big Ten has exactly 3. And guess what? They're all brand new to the conference because you brought them in from California, because they have UCLA, USC, and who's their 3rd team in the Big Ten that's ranked right now? Let me see.
USC sneaky good, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're sneaky good.
Gosh, I can't think of who their 3rd team is, but I think they have 3. There you go. You look it up. We'll jump over to Wednesday's schedule. It was lighter for sure. Marshall went down to Louisville a second time. Unfortunately, they got pounded pretty good in both games. So that's why it's so great that they rebounded for themselves and swept the season series against Georgia State, as we'll look at here in a minute. The Cajuns game with McNeese, that local one there, was postponed due to weather, which apparently, I think, if I'm not mistaken, someone said, none of that rain ended up coming until after the game would have been over, which is essentially what we saw today here in the local area, right, Marv? Schools canceled for really no reason in the end. But what did we find on that 3rd team?
Oregon, the Ducks.
There you go. Oregon. Where are they at? Number what?
21.
Yeah, so all the teams that you do not immediately think of as far as Big Ten, because they're all newer, those are the teams that are ranked.
Yeah.
So, your historically Big Ten conference, I still say the Sun Belt is better than, but whatever. And the last one to note, just because there's only 3 games there, South Alabama did take down Southeast Louisiana 10-3. And I think, was there a Thursday game? No, I don't think there was. No, there was no Thursday games last week. There was one the week before when Texas State and Washington State did that 4-game set. Somehow, some way, skip Saturday. Anyway, into Friday's action again. This is where we had was that App State Coastal game 6-6 late? Is that what the score was?
Yeah, so Coastal jumped to a 6-0 lead. App battled back to tie the game at 6-6, I think in the 8th. And then Coastal puts up 4 runs in the top of the 9th, and App can't claw back.
Yeah, and a little bit of kind of comedy of errors there, right? Wasn't that the one where it was kind of an easier toss to the first baseman? It was
like 3 bunts in a row. Yeah, 3 bunts in a row. They played perfect small ball. We gave them didn't make some plays that we probably should have made. I think one bunt was like the pitcher dove for it and he couldn't get it. The other one he barehanded and threw it over the first baseman's head. And it was just, emotional high, right, of climbing back out of a 6-0 hole to tie the game. And then just it all goes wrong quickly.
Yeah. And I think there was a pretty good crowd on hand, at least the first 2 days of that series. I'm not sure Sunday. Unfortunately, Seth couldn't join us tonight. Because he was there for – did he go to all 3, Marv? Do you remember? Or at least 2 of the 3 I think he went to?
He went Friday and Saturday.
Okay. Yeah, he could have given us a little bit better beat on, exactly how the crowd looked and sounded. I mean, you can kind of see that stuff on ESPN+, but sometimes it's not the greatest vantage point or you can't really quite get the feel for it. But interesting. One that was very obvious, A-State and Southern Miss on Friday. A-State gets the victory, 8-5 at home in front of essentially a record crowd all weekend, really. Starting that series off in great fashion at home and following through with what we had been hearing from not only Ben James, but a lot of the Red Wolves faithful, right, Marv?
Yeah, and I mean, listen, they were down going into the 7th. They scored 4 runs in the 7th to win the game. So to do that in front of a record crowd, a crowd that had kind of seen the momentum building, that's heck of a way to start it and keep the interest of the weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we jump over to Saturday's looks real quick, Ben says back-to-back days at the Tom broke attendance record for A-State baseball game and set a 3-game attendance record with over 4,000. So that's great to see. I know, you compare this to SEC numbers. Yeah, you're going to say that's not that many, but this is Sunbelt schools that typically have smaller stadiums, and these are some great numbers for people to come out and see baseball 3 games in a row when their team's doing really well and bringing in a team that's highly ranked and highly thought of nationally. But Ben's saying also note A-State is now just 2-16 versus Southern Miss. So even though they got the series victory, they had previously been winless versus the Golden Eagles. So there's another big reason why people were so up and excited about this one. This was the Saturday look. App State and Coastal yet again locked in a close game. And Coastal pulls away. That one happened in the 9th, didn't it, Marv? If I'm not mistaken, that one got away from them then.
Coastal was down 4-0 at one point, then ended up scoring 4 in the 9th to win the baseball game.
Yeah, disappointing for us App fans who wanted to talk junk to some guys named TJ Sullivan or just any other Coastal baseball fans. But it's also like it's hard to say take pride in because you got swept, but it's like an App fan and App faithful would think you were in every game. You had the opportunity to win one of these or 2 of these. Heck, really, you could look at all 3. So again, that's the one thing that we'll have to look at when our power rankings come out. Marshall gets the victory, 2nd straight one, a harder fought victory in this one, 4-2 over Georgia State. And then Southern Miss bounces back with a 7-1 victory over Arkansas State. And at this point now, I'm thinking, okay, Southern Miss has found their rhythm. They got over that first game where, it was a raucous crowd and everyone expected to win, and then they lost. So now they got their 7-1 victory. They're going to coast to, victory on Sunday. At least that's kind of what I thought was going to happen. That's not the case. Of note, too, ULM took down Texas State 8-5 in their second game. The Cajuns had evened it up with South Alabama. JMU squeaks by Georgia Southern 3-2. So, Marv, what other notes do you have for us as some of these series wrapped up? Again, you can see the consequences maybe of people's actions in this one now with the scores and series finals below them here.
Yeah, just not a great bullpen performance from App State all weekend. Once again, had a chance late in every single game. Hey, want to give a shout out to Bryce Bevlins from Marshall. We didn't talk about him on Friday night. 6.2 innings, just another dominant Friday night, as we've got to expect from the 3B alum, Bryce. We'd love to have him back on again. JMU gets the sweep. Cajuns, man, hard-fought win, right? Like, barely squeak out the win on Saturday. Hard-fought game on Saturday. South Alabama was a good baseball team. ULM ends their sweep emphatically. 16-5. I think that one was a run rule in 7 innings. Just really good way to end the weekend for some teams. Really bad way to end it for some other teams as well. But
right.
Man, I don't know about you, but we talked about it the past couple weeks. Super excited the conference is finally here. And, getting swept in your first weekend doesn't ruin your season, but it darn sure doesn't help it. And getting the sweep in your first weekend doesn't make you a champion, but it darn sure helps you on your way. Really good weekend of baseball. But I think we'll talk about it a little bit more. Arkansas State over Southern Miss. Shock of the weekend, I would think. And then, slightly behind that is ULM sweeping Texas State.
I'd actually flip it. And the reason I'd flip it is because I thought Texas State would sweep. I actually thought A-State had a chance to win. I just didn't think they would, but I thought they had a chance. It didn't shock me that they won this series, especially being at home in Jonesboro, right? A little bit more advantageous than some people may have given it credit for, especially because, as Ben said, this was a big-time meaningful thing. Not only hosting a ranked team, the most people in the crowd, they had never previously beaten this team. So a couple big things. So to me, the shocking part was ULM sweeping Texas State. I would have been surprised had they beaten them in general. The fact they swept them 3 games in a row with where we had ULM in our power rankings, where we had Texas State, that one was surprising to me. I would even say James Madison versus Georgia Southern, with them both being towards the bottom, I still think pretty evenly matched series. The fact either team swept would have surprised me, and it did. But again, that one's probably third after those other two. Marshall sweeping doesn't completely shock me. I think I had Marshall winning that series 2-1. So,
yeah, I did as well. Yeah,
nothing crazy there. But yeah, men saying Red Wolves on the rise. Absolutely. Let's get into what we're going to see this week. At least some of, again, some of these graphics have not changed since I've seen some of the announcements come out. So these first 2 games that you're seeing, A-State versus Missouri State, won't be happening. App State versus High Point won't be happening. Maybe Georgia Southern at Kennesaw State. That seems kind of like a more regional matchup that's probably likely to happen as long as that Atlanta area didn't see a vast amount of rain. Kennesaw State just outside that Atlanta market there. West Georgia going to Georgia State. So again, another one that's probably likely to take place. Texas State travels to number 23 Texas A&M. Southern Miss falling slightly in the rankings from their previous number 7 spot to number 12 this week. They get another shot at Nichols.
Yeah, that's a revenge game for Southern Miss.
Yep, it definitely is. Troy travels on the road here. It's an interesting matchup to see Troy on the road at Alabama State. So that'll be interesting. And then Alabama travels to South Alabama. Now, Alabama's not ranked. It's an SEC team, so usually still highly thought of, but this is a game that South Alabama is going to want pretty bad and probably be pretty excited to have at home, right, Marv?
No, that's really cool to have an SEC or ACC team at home. I think a lot of Sun Belt teams, I know App had Wake Forest. I think a lot of teams have hosted, a quote unquote bigger school at home. Thinks it has to be on a weekday, right? Where, your transient people can't come up for the weekend. But, if you're a student and you're in South Alabama, show up for that one.
Yeah, absolutely. No reason not to. Ben saying SEC is still somewhat subpar. It is true. I mean, this is a year where you're looking at the SEC saying this is not the most powerful SEC that we've seen here recently. So interesting to see. What is it? LSU
Dropped
not even ranked anymore.
Yeah, dropped out there. I mean,
crazy.
Listen, they've still got Texas A&M, Tennessee, Oklahoma, Mississippi State, Auburn, and Arkansas all ranked, and Texas. So still pretty good, right? They've got 3 of the top 10 teams in the country.
Texas number 2, Arkansas number 4, Auburn 5, Mississippi State 6. So you're still going to get some respect if you can end up getting a bunch of those as victories. And I want to note the Texas State traveling to Texas A&M as well, because this is a game that Texas State took down A&M as they were number 1 last season. So this is another one that is going to have some heat to it pretty good. And see if Texas State can rebound after that shocking sweep in the hands of the Warhawks. And again, like you said, that Southern Miss Nichols game is going to be a lot more heated than a lot of people from the outside may think if they're not paying attention to the fact that Nichols was the one that beat them just after Southern Miss had that huge victory the night before against it was Mississippi State, right?
Yeah, it's either Mississippi State or Ole Miss. But yeah, I mean, revenge game and coming off a series loss, like they're going to want to start to to right the ship a little bit and have a little confidence going into the weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. If there was one game, which one are you picking? You can only watch one of these. Which one are you going with?
Oh man,
I know. That's why I picked it, because I know it's not easy.
Yeah, I want to see Southern Miss get right. That would be the game I would watch.
Okay, interesting. I'm going with Texas State. Texas State at Texas A&M because of what happened last year. The fact Texas A&M is ranked, Texas State is not. Could get that victory. Yeah, I got my eyes set on that one.
But
If
in
I can
all
rewatch
reality,
one of these.
I will watch none of these games tomorrow night because I will be watching the final of the World Baseball Classic and trying to see if the U.S. can bring it home.
I will say I caught the one. Was it just last night? Right. That was. Someone said one of the best baseball games they've ever seen. I'd be hard pressed to disagree. I mean, it was really good. Not high scoring, which is interesting. A lot of people think high scoring games are fun to watch. They are, but this one was good because there were some ones that were like almost out of the park that were grabbed back in, but it wasn't like obvious that someone was going to make the catch. Like it was a holy crap, did he catch that? So like it was just a great game. The atmosphere was good being down there in Miami. So yeah, absolutely. Was the other games going on right now? Do you have it on by chance or no?
My kids are watching it in the living room. Venezuela versus Italy, who beat the United States. I
Yep.
don't have a score on that, but I'll update you on that here in a second. But no, last night's game was fantastic. That Julio Rodriguez, Robin Aaron Judge home run in center field was one of the
Yeah.
one of the better plays that you'll ever see, and it was a pitcher's duel, right? Great defense and an absolute pitcher's duel.
Yeah.
Every guy on both of those rosters was a Major League Baseball player. So it was really cool to watch when, they haven't played any Major League Baseball yet. This is essentially a lot of people's spring training, but man, it's been so much fun to watch. Italy up 2-0 on Venezuela in the bottom of the third.
Interesting. The only thing I don't like about this tournament is like I'm used to like the World Cup of soccer, and it's like everybody is from that country.
Yeah,
No doubt,
some
it's
really
definitely
loose affiliations with it's kind of weird, but it's been really good quality baseball,
true.
which has been a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, that's absolutely true, and it does make sense. Oh, Chris was giving us an update right at the same time you were giving it. Chris was saying 0-2 in favor of Italy, or
The
the
baseball
Italian.
powerhouse, Italy.
Yeah, yeah. I love all the stuff that they've done with them on social media about the espresso and eating the mom's pasta and all this. Like just having fun with it. At least do that, right? Like don't sit there and be like get offended and be like, oh no, we were actually the Italians. No, just agree that it's kind of outrageous and lean into it and have fun with it, and yeah, just make it entertaining. That's the one thing that's been really good. This is some entertaining baseball without being to some egregious level that's like over the top. I know some people just despise the Savannah Bananas. This is not like that, but it's still also like that. It still has the flair to it, right, Marv?
No, it's just really cool to see people play for their country, right? We talked about some of the loose affiliation, but I wish that this was a longer tournament, to be completely honest with you. I wish they did it kind of more like
True.
the World Cup, where you get out of pool play and you're 3 games away from a championship, and they don't give you a lot of days off. And I know Major League Baseball plays pretty much every day, but selfishly as a baseball fan, I wish there were more teams and the tournament went, a month. That would be phenomenal.
Yeah, I agree. I think it would be good too. And it would help draw the people who hadn't quite caught on. There's people that are tuning in now that didn't even realize this was going on, probably to some extent. Obviously, if you're a baseball fan, you're well aware, but there's some people maybe from the outside that don't know MLB is right around the corner just yet, and they're not fully paying attention. But hey, same type of thing happened in Olympic hockey, and there was a lot of people following that gold medal game. So as long as the United States is in the championship game, which we know they are, there will be some interest tomorrow night and should be a pretty good time to be had, hopefully, if we can win it. Wednesday's slate is a little bit lighter. We had the Virginia schools going at it. George Washington travels to James Madison. Norfolk State travels across this road to ODU. Marshall goes against Kentucky. That one's going to be a big one for Mr. Bryce Blevins with his affiliation to the University of Kentucky. New Orleans on the road at ULM, not a far travel there. Coastal Carolina goes on the road to Campbell. Be interesting one there with the Camels, what they've done historically. Again, what are they like? Are they about 500 or so this year that you know of?
I'd have to check. I mean, they definitely, spent several years in the top 25, made a couple appearances in some regionals, but we know what happens. And today's game, Coach Leff went to Ohio State, and Ohio State's not doing really well. I think they won 10 games last year. I don't know where they are this year, but yeah, but Campbell has been a good program for a while. And then Cajuns at Houston, I think that's a sneaky good game as well. First game they're going to be playing with that number beside their name.
Yeah, that interestingly enough, Coastal moves nowhere in the top 25 this week. And I think, as we've said, where do you rank their sweep, right? Like, is App State a really good team and they should be rewarded for that sweep, or is that should be, what should have happened, and that's why Coastal didn't get pushed up in the rankings? Or is, a lot of other teams around them moving, around more than they are, and they just happen to be stuck at 16. Either way, that's where they're at. Same spot they were at last week.
Or maybe if the games wouldn't have been that close, did they move up a spot or two? I don't think
sweeping.
That's
a good point. That's a good point.
I don't think sweeping App takes you from 16 to 12. But if you go up there and completely dominate, do you go to 14?
Yeah, good point. I did bring up their record. This is the greatest part. Like, we are relatively close to the University of Campbell, but if you're not familiar, they are the Camels, and it's very easy to remember their website name. It's gocamels.com. So I pulled that up while we were talking, Marv. They are 9-9 on the season. They faced Troy, which they lost the series 2-1 to Troy. They also played Coastal Carolina earlier this season and lost 13-7. So this is a rematch. They are coming off of a series victory over North Carolina A&T, but as we know, North Carolina A&T not really known for being a baseball school. So we'll see what that means for them. But I would expect Coastal to win this one again, probably somewhere similar to what they did that first time. But yeah, Cajuns at Houston. I guess, is that the game you're watching if you pick in one of these? Is that top 25 team now in the Cajuns?
Yeah, I want to see how they respond on the road. First game being ranked, I think that's important for them to get off on the right foot there.
Nice. I do agree. All right. We're going to bring up the weekend series in the Sun Belt, and we're going to lead it off with telling you who is our series of the week. Hey, what do you know? That video actually played for me that time. All right.
Hey, everyone's played for me, so you're doing something right.
There we go. As long as it's working for everybody else, I don't care whether it works for me or not. But yeah, I am going to a blank screen when that happens, and I'm like, I hope it worked. But Marv, we had a difficult decision to make, and so we ended up saying it's a draw. Do you want to lead us off with the two series that we are considering our series of the week this week?
I'll take the one I picked. The one that you picked was my number 2. The one I picked was your number 2. The one I picked was Cajuns at Texas State. Once again, road swing, first time being ranked. How does Texas State respond after being swept? To me, that's the biggest series in the conference this week.
Yeah, and I had a hard time disagreeing, but I also could make the argument for the one that I did go number 1, which was ULM out South Alabama. ULM coming off the series sweep of Texas State. That's why we've got the Warhawks hat on tonight. In South Alabama, keeping it close and competitive with the team that's now ranked number 25 in the Cajuns. So I think that one's very, very intriguing, especially if South Alabama gets the victory over Alabama in the midweek. Now they come rolling in saying, all right, hey, we're back to our winning ways. But ULM's going to come in likely. I mean, they do have that game against New Orleans now, but if they can keep that thing rolling and they're coming in 4-0 in their last 4 games, it'll be really interesting to see how this matchup goes down. Outside of that, we've got Troy traveling to Hattiesburg to play the number 12 Golden Eagles. Do you think we're going to see, a pretty good and competitive game in that one, Marv? Troy maybe not living up to full expectations. Southern Miss previously was, but then they had the setback there at A-State.
Yeah, I think you're going to see some competitive baseball there for sure. I mean, that's a rivalry, if you will. It's going to be good baseball. I am interested to see how the Eagles perform back at the Pete after what has to be a disappointing weekend for them. But yeah, I think you're going to see a good series.
Yeah, I think one that's up for grabs, App State and ODU. I don't know if you disagree or think differently with that one, but I think that's a coin toss as far as I'm concerned. So at least competitive, right?
Yeah, as an App fan, I hope that's a get right weekend for App. Hope they can go down there and take a series. A sweep would be fantastic to get back to 500. But ODU's, coming off losing a series to Troy, who we just talked about. So yeah, I think that's a coin flip series right there.
All right. Is there any disappointment if Coastal Carolina does not sweep James Madison after sweeping App State? And James Madison got a sweep of their own. Maybe we're not giving them enough credit. Is this one that could jump up and surprise the Chants?
I think being at home, it's funny. I'm looking at my cheat sheet, and I'm not trying to give too much away. I could see JMU taking one. No precursor to that, but I could also see Coastal sweeping the series. I'm kind of mentally debating: do the Dukes take one away, maybe riding a little bit of momentum? I think their midweek is against William and Mary, so they could come in on a 4-game win streak. I don't know. It's baseball. Sweeps are hard.
Yeah, they are. George Washington. So it's close. William Mary, George Washington. Same difference, right? As long as they're not in our conference, we don't care who they are. Just knock them down. But A-State then travels to Atlanta to play the Bus Lot Boys. Look, from the outside, I think a lot of people are going to see this, say, oh, hey, they just took down Southern Miss. A-State's going to keep it rolling. Georgia State just got swept. But Georgia State went and beat Georgia Tech earlier this year. Georgia Tech's still up there at number 3 in the country. So they have the talent to get a one-off game and avoid a sweep at the very least. And now that they're at home, also, like, how's A-State dealing with this high that they're on after beating a highly ranked team at home, right? Like, now they're traveling. That's a plane ride. That's not a bus ride there. So I don't know. You think that one could surprise you? You think A-State's going to roll in that one because they've kind of got this momentum going with them now?
I mean, I'm taking A-State in the series for sure. If A-State lost that series, I think that would be a big letdown for them. Like, for what you just said, riding that momentum of taking down a top 10 team in a series. But as you stated, they beat Georgia Tech. We know that they can win a game against a good team. So how does it respond? And let's talk theoretically, big picture, right? You got some teams ranked 20 through 25 that falter this weekend. A-State goes in there and sweeps. Did they have a number beside their name next week?
Yeah, I think that's a great question to ask. Sully Sports jumping in and saying, well, if it isn't the Belt Baseball Boys. Oh, man. But I do want to stay on that real quick because I'm not so sure that they couldn't have found themselves in the top 25 this week instead of a team in the name of Wake Forest who went 0-4 last week and stayed within the top 25 rankings there at number 24. Maybe the thing that's helping them is they were previously, I guess I should say, ranked number 12. So they don't fall all the way out. But
yeah, that's definitely a big drop.
It is.
Yeah, you would think it shows you that Arkansas State wasn't that close. Maybe going into the weekend, you would think that beating a top 10 team, if you were in that others receiving vote category, does that propel you up to that? Maybe they weren't as close. I think after last weekend, they would have to be. If they showed that category, they would have to be there. And depending on how teams in front of them perform, if they get a sweep, I would say, put me on the bandwagon of saying put a number beside their name if they sweep this weekend.
I think they would have been close had they not faltered against Oral Roberts. Now, Oral Roberts currently in position, both kind of RPI and within their conference to make the field. Okay, so they could be a decent team, but at the time that A-State lost that series to them, they were not even a 500 ball club. So that's going to look bad on your resume. Now, they lost those 2 games to Oral Roberts because they did win one. They didn't get swept. They all lost both of those games by only 1 run. So those are those like close competitive games. And to note, on their side of things, they split midweeks with Arkansas, the number 4 ranked team in the country. And that loss that they took to Arkansas was also only by 1 run.
Correct.
So that's what I'm thinking. Like, okay, if Wake Forest goes 0 for 4 over the last week, and you've got an Arkansas State team that's just done what they did, as we've talked about in this show, it just, again, Wake Forest has the schedule to jump back into these rankings if it's deemed appropriate. A-State probably does, right? Because we're also in a conference that has a lot of good teams, a lot of ranked teams now. But at the same time, Wake Forest probably plays a ranked team every week or every other week, which,
Yes.
the Sun Belt doesn't quite have that set up. So it'll be interesting to see what transpires if Wake continues to falter and A-State can
I'm trying
jump
to
up
find
in there.
A-State in the RPI. So the first RPI came out on the 12th. You want to guess who the number 1 RPI team in the country was coming into the weekend?
Southern Miss.
It was Southern Miss. It was. Good guess. Either that or you looked it up, one of the two, but I'll give you credit for it.
I was aware. I was aware before the weekend started. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to find Arkansas State. I'm scrolling down a little bit too far. It makes me think Coastal Carolina's a 57 RPI. Troy's 66. Where the heck?
Oh, here, quick shout out while you're doing that. Speaking of RPI. 78? Okay.
78.
Interesting.
Now,
shout out and again. Yeah, we don't have the time or attention to properly do it, so we don't cover the softball aspect, just like with women's basketball. It's just we've got time and ability to do like one sport each every time. But I do want to give a shout out because Sunbelt softball has every single team in the conference 100 in RPI. Every single team in the top 100 in RPI. I haven't fact checked this, but I would assume that no other conference in the country has every team in the top 100 in RPI. Maybe, but I just don't know. But pretty difficult to do. So if we could get our baseball's teams all in that category, that would be something, because that would be further proof of what we've been saying this entire time as well. But yeah, absolutely. Another update in the World Baseball Classic game, Marv? Or?
No, I'm still scrolling through RPI right now, trying to figure out how many Sunbelt teams are in the top 100. But you get lost when you start counting and you have 100 teams that you're looking through. I think it's half a dozen.
True. Okay. Well, hey, maybe we'll put the graphic out there and make it real easy like the women's softball stuff did. Even if we don't have them all the top one, because we know they're not. But the congrats to the women's on that aspect. That'll probably wrap it up for us. Any news, remarks, notes you want to share, Marv, before we jump out of here?
No, I had a note written down. I can't find it, but I always like to give shout outs to guys that have been on the podcast. Rigoberto had a phenomenal weekend this weekend. We already talked about Bryce throwing his game, but it's just cool to see guys that took time out of their day to come on the podcast and kind of put themselves out there, let us learn a little bit about them, let us learn a little bit about their program, and have them show out is really cool.
Yeah. Starting next week, we're gonna start focusing on the players a little bit more specifically, because I think, like Marv said, that we need to do that. They've done some stuff for us. We're gonna give some shout outs to some of those guys who've done it. I'd like to do like a leaderboard thing every week, kind of come up, see who's in the lead for home runs and other random statistics that we deem fun or appropriate for the show, and kind of loop that stuff in there too, so we can all start learning and hearing the names a little bit more often ourselves. What with 14 teams, a lot of times we do that bigger picture look, because it's just easier when you have a roster as big as baseball does and you play as many games. It's not football where they go once a week. So that will do it for us, and we will see you guys next week. Hopefully Seth returns, but if not, we'll at least be looping him in on all the pick'ems and all the fun stuff. So we'll see you guys next time.
See you.
Oh, it's helpful.